All right, so this is a video on clubs in socionics. I think this is something that's very important that actually doesn't get quite as much attention as it should. Um, it's also a nice link or bridge, if you will, to the Kirsty temperaments or other temperament theory. You're going to get that with clubs. It's essentially the same thing. Okay, there is a slight variation to it. Kirsty just kind of saw the temperaments a little differently. So he kind of structured it slightly different. So let's kind of get into it here. What you're looking at is from the World Socionics Blogspot page. See if I can, whoa, a little big. And now my big ass head is in the way. Okay, anyway. So these are the clubs, okay, putting the things together. Now, this is very similar to what Kirsty had as NTs, here as researchers, NFs as humanitarians. And then this is where Kirsty kind of split. He decided to go with SPs and SJs because he thought that it just made more sense to him. He saw more behaviors that were congruent with SJs and SPs. The weird thing about what Kirsty did there is that he starts with NTs, taking the two middle letters, and then NFs, again, the two middle letters, right? You have an ENTP, ENFP. He's talking about the two middle letters. And then all of a sudden, he kind of switches it up and he goes with the SPs and SJs. So now it's like ESTP and ESTJ, right? And suddenly he's not using the two middle letters. He's using one of the middle letters and one of the outer letters. So he's not consistent that way. Again, he had his reasons for doing it. That's fine. His reasons are valid. They are useful in their own way, but it's just different. So here with Socionics, they decided to keep it consistent where you use the middle letters all the way through. NT, NF, ST, and SF. So here we have the researchers. Okay, this would be your NTs, or essentially in Socionics language, your intuitive logical types, which you see right here, or it could be the reverse, logical intuitive. It's a combination of intuition and logic. Okay, and it has the four types that are listed here. These types are known mostly for just being your typical classic nerds in the most basic language, right? They're very interested in abstract ideas, problem solving, as it says here, creative strategies, long-term developments of economics and business. Now, this is something I like to bring up here. Some NTs, particularly like your NTPs, your alpha quadra style NTPs in particular, tend to be the ones that like the more theoretical kind of thinking, like thinking about physics, quantum mechanics, the underlying structure of organic chemistry, and very, very nerdy, very abstract type of topics like that. That tends to have more of that NTP flavor. So even in the world of socionics, you'll see a lot of NTPs, these ILEs, LIIs, these two right here. You tend to see a lot of them really focusing a lot on the structure and the definition and abstracting what is perception versus what is decision making and thinking and the philosophy. They tend to spend a lot of time on that. They tend to really enjoy that, right? That's the abstract stuff they're talking about. Now, here, the economics and business management, also military things, other pragmatic versions of sciences, is where you're more likely to find maybe your ILIs or your LIEs. This is your INTJs if we're doing MBTI speak, and ENTJs over here. Okay. They tend to be a little bit more practical in their abstracting theories that they like to come up with. They're looking ahead, thinking, where is the economic markets going to go? Where can I take this business? Where is it going to go? What meaning is that going to have? They might do psychology, things like this. It's like, what is the meaning of psychology? What is the meaning of this thing that I'm doing? What's its purpose? How does people get something out of this? I don't want to just theorize for the sake of theorizing. I want to make sure that what I'm doing has a practical value to people. Right? They tend to think more along those lines. But ultimately, this whole group is interested in all this kind of stuff, theory. That's why you see so many of them in typology conversations and so on, and especially in socionics. Okay, they're detached from day-to-day matters, so they usually just don't show much interest in the day-to-day tasks. They might not show that much interest in school and classes. They might not show much interest in getting their house in order, fixing things around the house, making sure their car is running right, what job thing they need to do now. Not as interested. They seem far more excited to talk about these theories and these ideas than they are to deal with everyday things. This includes, it says here, their feelings or social stuff. They're not as aware as who's dating who and what did Mary say over there and what's going on with that. They can be very forgetful or not interested in those kinds of things, making them very socially awkward and clumsy at times. All right, so those are your typical, your NTs, the researchers, nerdy types, if you want to make it real simple. Humanitarians. So now we're in the NFs, intuitive, ethical. All right, you see that in everybody's code here. This is a type most equipped to deal with creative output and human condition, either passionately making others aware of long-term purpose, blah, 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 blah. So this is a type that's very similar to the NTs in that they're also very abstract and like theories and ideas, and they like to talk about theories and ideas, but they're not as interested in trying to figure out the underlying structure or the practical application of it. They're much more interested in doing abstracting ideas for the sake of what is good for people. How does this make society better? How does this make people feel better or live better lives, more quality to their life? How does it provide spiritual meaning to people's lives, ultimately make them happier? Where are things going throughout their life? Will this be something that's good for people in a long-term sense, not just today or throughout the year, but for years to come? This will be something deeply meaningful to them. What is the right thing to do and the right moral ethical direction that the country and society should go into? Where are we evolving towards? They focus a lot of their effort and energy on that. They talk about that. They enjoy that. That's what fires them up in conversation, right? Because they're more of an ethical feeler type, they're very much focused on people. This is a type that tends to be pretty good with people, pretty darn good with people, in fact. They blend in very well to all social areas of society, very nicely. Some would call a few of them very chameleon-like because of that. They blend in so well to different social environments. So they are very intuitive, like the researchers, but they have far better social skills. Usually they're very diplomatic, is a word that Kirsty would have used. Good diplomacy, good getting along with people, trying to see the good side of everyone. So here, viewing the world, subjective, personal, charity, psychotherapy. Now, don't get it wrong. Some of these types might be like EIEs, maybe politicians, presidents, people like that. So they can go into pragmatic things, but what you notice they're very good at is being very charismatic, getting along well with people, creating a good vision of harmony, of purpose, of what is good for humanity in a moral, ethical sense. They're usually very good at communicating those ideas, which makes them very popular. And taking care of the little guys. If you get to the other side of the coin here and you go to like EIIs, very good at taking care of those people who are not appreciated, those people who are forgotten, the minorities of minorities. So ultimately, that is pragmatic. That's their focus. Now here, pragmatists, This would be STs, or sensory logical. Most equipped to deal with real solutions to physical problems, either assertively enforcing structures and hierarchies, martial warfare, and policing, refining methodologies to make daily process. Medicine and engineering. I've got a lot to say about that. Actually, all of this, because I've done all of this. So here we're talking sensory. Now, these people are less interested in abstracting. You'll find that they're usually not interested in fancy theory talk, speculative talk, things that are not as proven and grounded in everyday life, or things that just seem useless to everyday life. Like it might be a nice theory and maybe it's useful for somebody else, but it's just not useful to them in their day-to-day life. So they're just kind of like, who cares? What's the point? In that sense, they seem very pragmatic. That's where this name pragmatist kind of comes from. They're very interested usually in understanding how things work, why it works, how your car works, how you pay your taxes and get that done. If you're in military things, the tactics of things, the weapons and equipment, how people move around and do stuff, how you work as a team, what are the laws that are in place and how does using those laws work, legal system stuff, how does all that really work in reality? Could be other hobbies and things, sports. This is how you do the sport. This is how you play. This is the technique of playing. This is how the rules and so on are set up. This is the how you do things. You make it happen. How you fix that car and work that engine and make that happen. Okay, how you fly that plane. Very practical, very skills oriented, very much focused on those kinds of things. Medicine, engineering, again, very much the how to doing these kinds of things. They're very much more focused on the processes of how these things work, machinery, tools, technical side of stuff, not so much the social side of things. And they're not so interested in all this abstraction. To them, they usually see this as trivial or quaint or whatever, but it's ultimately not very important. And there's not much reason to spend a lot of time thinking about all this because they spend their time thinking about this. Okay. At least that's the focus. Okay. And I want to reiterate that. Let me say that again while I'm at it. I'm describing that this is the focus of these groups. You're going to notice a lot of attention paid here towards the abstract problem solving ideas, abstract feelings and ethics and where things should go. A lot of thought to practical day-to-day how-to tasks and so on. Okay. It doesn't mean they don't also do these other things every so often for a hobby, for some time off, just to maybe have a casual conversation. They will get into these things a little bit, but it's not the focus of what they're truly interested in and dealing with. Okay, that's the point. Socialite. This would be SFs, sensory and ethical, right? Sensory and feelings, ethical. Most equipped to socialize and persuade others, catering to emotional and physical well-being of others, cooking and entertainment, making strong connections with people to achieve ends, diplomacy and etiquette. They are prone to be especially involved, being most caught up in their feelings and physical surroundings. All right. SEI, ESE, SEE, ESI. Ethics and sensory. That's what they all have in common. So again, this is a sensory type. They're more practical, more day-to-day stuff. This is what's going on today, what's going on with the neighbors, what's going on around us. Not as interested in theoretical talk. In some cases, they'll really dislike it. This group, however, is very good with people. Here it has like diplomacy and etiquette. Very, very good, kind of like the NFs. In some ways, they're probably a lot better than the NFs because they're more grounded and they're more literally aware and taking care of people. They're providing food for them, as here's catering, cooking for them, taking care of them, paying bills for them, helping them, checking in on them, calling them up. How are you doing? What's going on? How is your sister? How is your family? How is this happening? They tend to be the most involved with their families. very close to their families, often going to family gatherings, family parties, family events, very attached to them, usually. Okay. That's, of course, assuming that they have a good, positive family life and there's not some other craziness going on. But they usually are very attached to that. Very much aware whose birthday is coming up, whose birthday is this, who is interested in that. They go places, they like to bring people with them. It's very much about socializing, fitting in, group activity, and making sure everyone, well, it's not true. Half of them really want to make sure everyone's having a good time and fitting in and so on. And the other half are kind of more interested in making sure that the right people are having a good time and fitting in, right? But this social focus on people and the people they care about, that's what their life tends to revolve around, and how to provide and help other people. Okay. CSFs. So these are the clubs. As I said, this is the most appropriate thing to kind of attach to, like Kirsty temperaments, Kirsty, or any kind of temperamental theory. When you hear sanguines and caloric and phlegmatic and all that, it's mostly dealing with this. This is what kind of lines up. It's not exactly one-to-one. Again, Kirsty wanted SP instead of and SJ. Here it's going with ST and SFs. There's good reasons for both. You can kind of go either way if you wanted to. The good thing with the Socionics approach is the consistency. You're sticking to the middle letters all the way through, nice and consistent. NTs, NFs, STs, and SPs. Consistent, right? Makes sense to everybody. This is a great thing to look for when you're maybe trying to type somebody, type yourself, whatever, right? You can often see their temperament coming out. What are they most interested in? The theoretical, abstract problem solving, how things actually work, at least in theory. Being very knowledgeable about a wide array of things and how they work, even though that person never actually worked in it, but they've read up on it, they studied it. They might be a that, or somebody who's very focused on where is society going? What about people? What makes people better? How can I help really improve in a deep, long-standing way what works for people and so on, and motivate them? It could be this, right? How you get things done. How many things can I get done? What do you get done in the correct way? How you're supposed to do it right? A lot of focus on that. Could be very ST. Or people, family, who's important to me? Am I really caring a lot about that? Maintaining those close associations very well. Could be SF, right? Very helpful at determining different types. It's something, in my opinion, that you should be paying attention to when you're trying to type somebody or figure them out. It's one of the first things you should be paying attention to. And that's where this stuff kind of gets overlooked, and people kind of tend to focus on quadras in socionics, which is important for a reason. Quadras are definitely important, but it's not the only thing to be paying attention to. You should be looking at this stuff too. All right. Again, this is on World Socionics blogspot, but it appears everywhere in Socionics. This is not unique to World Socionics. Here in sociotype.com, another major website. Here you go. Humanitarians, socials, pragmatics, researchers. See the same names, same breakdown, NF, SF, blah, 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 blah. Right? Goes into all this stuff. Okay. Look through it. Okay. Whole lot of crap in here also. And Wiki Socion, I think, has pretty much the same stuff. I'm sure if you looked at Galenko's things, you'd see a lot of similar things. So look into it. It's very important. Okay. The clubs. Notice here it says temperaments. Temperaments in socionics is kind of different. It is definitely not the same thing as temperaments from a Kirsty and really temperament theory style. It's not really the same thing. It's something else. So today, this is just about clubs. Focus on clubs. Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much this part I want to get into. I'm going to talk more about it in more details because I already like this. I like the temperament theories. I like using it in conjunction with socionics or socionics. with temperament theory. You could argue this is another reason why you almost don't need temperament theory. You don't need Kirsty or MBTI stuff because it's already in Socionics. Socionics already has things to talk about that too. So Socionics can be a little bit more of a one-stop shop. Okay, but that's a different argument for a different day. Right? So again, like and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Do you like to use clubs a lot? Do you even remember clubs? Do you know about them? You know, etc. Okay. All right. Till the next one.